All right, Assalamu alaikum everybody. Thank you for attending. Today we're going to do a workshop over starting medical school and how to study. So before we begin, I'm just gonna read a quick surah. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. So AMWPA is a nonprofit organization founded in 2008, and it consists of a group of female Muslim physicians and dentists allied in health promotion and preventative medicine in the community. And our vision is to promote the health, welfare, and education of women. And it was very active during the pandemic in educating the community and providing masks throughout the Metroplex. They also provided meals for frontline workers and offered merit awards to Muslim female students in medicine. So our panelists today, I'm HEBA, I'm a UT Southwestern MS2, and I'll be the moderator, and I'll have the rest of the panelists introduce themselves.
Assalamu alaikum everybody, I'm AHMED, I'm an MS2 at UTMB.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, I'm Sana Khan, I'm an MS3 at MCGOVERN.
Assalamu alaikum, I'm SAREENA, I'm a third year at TCOM.
Awesome. Okay, so get excited. It's okay to be nervous, but we're all here to support you, and we're holding this workshop to kind of discuss some of our experiences and how you can make it easier starting medical school based off of what we've been through. So get excited. So these are the points that we'll be discussing today. Number one, it's a learning curve. Number two, what's your number one priority? And we'll discuss what that is. Finding mentors, your schedule, and last but not least, you belong wherever you are.
All right, so I'm going to kick us off by talking about how medical school is a learning curve. I know everyone here probably knows how to study. Y'all have made it this far. You're in medical school. Take a minute to pat yourself on the back. But how you've studied in the past doesn't always work in how you study for medical school. Hey, if you want to go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so it's not going to be easy in the beginning. Y'all have to understand that what you probably did in one whole semester or one whole year of undergrad, that's what you're going to be doing in one semester of medical school. And sometimes it feels like you're finishing an entire course in 1 week. And it's just important to give yourself some grace, make some mistakes, and just use the first semester to kind of figure out what works for you. Every class is different. Just go in with a flexible mindset. You're going to get used to the workload. That is not going to be a problem coming out of medical school. What's going to be the problem is having to adapt your learning style for different classes. So just remain flexible and you will get the hang of it. Don't get overwhelmed right now. And just know everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. It's hard because you'll be talking to your friends and someone's like, oh yeah, no, I did 100 questions today. And you're like, oh, I only did 10. But if they learn through practice questions, and yes, they need to do 100 questions to get the content. Whereas if you spend more time looking at the PowerPoints, that's how you learn. You spend more time, 6 hours reading the PowerPoints. Everyone has their own way of learning, their own strengths, their own weaknesses. And as you're talking to your friends, don't let that get you down, that it feels like everyone's doing more than you are. Just know that you're doing enough for yourself. And it's also really important to have a good support system. This is just a new experience in general. Nothing seems to have been able to prepare people for medical school. It is something totally new. It's a beast in of itself. So just have people who are there who are going to support you, who are going to check in on you. My friends and I had this little thing where we check in with each other once a week, just say, hey, where's your head at right now? And it's a colored system, whatever colored square you'd sent, that's where your head was at that moment. And that's just good to have people who are going to be there, who you can cry into, because I guarantee you there will be tears, people who you can celebrate with when you finish your first test, get your first really good grade, all those things, you need people with you. So what's your number one priority? So I know coming into medical school, when y'all applied, they told you you had to have extracurriculars, you had to volunteer, you had to have your MCAT, you had to have your GPA, all of that really mattered when you're applying to medical school. But now that you're here, your number one priority is medical school. It is your coursework. You want to hit the ground running on your coursework. I know it's going to seem overwhelming. We've been programmed to take on a lot, do all these extracurriculars, and medical school has a lot of extracurriculars, whether it's interest groups for the specialties you're in, or my school offers a sports club, just anything to get out there and just interact with your classmates. But make sure you take, like, I would recommend taking it slow with extracurriculars. Find 1 or 2 that you like your first semester, get involved with those. Then as your interests change, your participation organizations will change. You can always add on more clubs later, but don't try to bite off more than you can chew in the beginning. Give yourself time to focus on the coursework, set those good habits now about learning how to study, developing your schedule, do all of that. And then with your free time, you can add in the coursework, add in the extracurriculars. It's hard. It's easier to add them in later than try to juggle everything in the beginning. And don't say yes to everything. I know it is so tempting to want to say yes to everybody, to do everything. And it sounds like it'll work out. It doesn't always. You don't want to give yourself an opportunity to crash and burn when you don't need to. Just take things slow, take it 1 week at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself. And just for right now, figure out what your schedule is. Honestly, that sometimes changes class to class. So you might just need a week to get your bearings when you start a new class, but just like figure out what your schedule is, figure out how you want to study. And as you do that, you're going to do well in your courses and you will get free time where you can add in these extracurriculars.
Okay, finding mentors. So something that'll make your life so much easier throughout all of med school is finding people who can guide you. And it's a good idea to start early. So mentors can come in all shapes and forms. They can be medical students like us, residents, attendings, professors, etc. And if you're looking for mentors, AMWPA is the right place to be because one of their focuses is mentorship. So we can definitely help you find mentors. Something that really helped me was getting in touch with upperclassmen because upperclassmen from your respective schools can give you a lot of school-specific advice. This can look like study resources that are helpful for a specific test. They can give you advice for which attendings are good to work with, people to reach out to for research and things like that. Down the line, you want to start thinking about getting rec letters for residency. It's not really something that you have to focus on too much right now because 4th year is when you get letters. But if you're building a relationship with a mentor, that can help you get a stronger letter of recommendation. And when you're starting medical school, you want to start thinking about what specialty you want to do down the line. You might come in with an idea of what specialty you want to do, but it's also fair to not know what you want to do at this point. But start trying to think about that. Even during your preclinical years, after you finish a systems-based subject, it's good to reflect on whether you really enjoy the content or whether it's something that you absolutely hated and never want to do down the line or want to avoid in the future. Something you can do is reach out to attendings to see if you can shadow them. I had a friend who during every systems-based module, she would shadow an attending from that specialty. So that was a really good way for her to explore all these different subjects, keep an open mind, and really figure out what she was interested in. And that also helped her space out her shadowing opportunities. And then research. So research is something that's always good to get involved in. It can only help you down the line when you're applying for residency. It's not something you necessarily have to focus on right now, just because your number one priority, as we talked about, is getting adjusted, getting accustomed to medical school and focusing on your studies. But when summer rolls around, you definitely want to think about getting involved in research, just because that's you get a lot of time during the summer to get involved in things like research. And a lot of schools have summer research programs, and you can get a poster out of that. So keep that in the back of your mind for now. And yeah, figure out what you're interested in. Your schedule. So time management is super important in medical school. You get a lot of free time, a lot of time to fill up in your day, but you want to be really mindful of how you fill up your day. So, we can go to the next slide, HEBA. Yeah, one more slide. Okay, yeah, one more. Okay, so when you're structuring your day, you want to cater to your strengths and weaknesses. If you're a morning person, you can wake up super early in the morning and then maybe do some Anki reviews, start your lectures for the day and then wind down early, have some free time in the evening. But if you're not a morning person, I definitely don't recommend trying to force yourself into being one. Just like cater to your strengths and weaknesses. And then you can either have a super structured schedule or a more free-flowing schedule. So a structured schedule, what that looks like is you can list out every single lecture you need to watch before a test, count how many Anki cards you need to do if you do Anki, list out how many questions there are that you want to tackle before a certain test, and then divide up all that content among the number of days that you have before an exam. And then you can create like a spreadsheet, and this makes things simplified because you don't have to think about what you have to do for a day. It's just a checklist. Other people like myself don't really like a super structured schedule just because there's that pressure of being consistent every single day. What worked for me is figuring out which lectures I had to do for the week and front loading those. Some days I would do maybe several lectures in a day and be very productive, but then the next day it could be my break day and I would do no studying at all. But that's something that I preferred. And then also it's important to not compare yourself with others. So as we talked about, everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. So if it may seem like your peers are doing way more than you, but spending more time doesn't always mean that you're going to be more successful. So keep that in mind.
So you belong wherever you are. So I'm going to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome. I know that a lot of us, we just got into medical school and it's like, wow, like I don't know what to expect. Everybody here is so smart and I just don't belong. But the medical administrators and everybody that brought you into the school, they brought you in for a reason. You belong there. Everybody in medical is extremely intelligent, but so are you. Everybody brings something to the table. Someone will be better at like studying a little bit more, or like they know more in one subject, but everybody has something to offer. And that's why all of you guys are in medical school. I know imposter syndrome is something I struggled with as well. I remember going to class and like people would just know like everything about everything. And I was like, dude, I just watched like the first like lecture and like I have no idea what's going on. So it's like normal. Everybody feels it, even doctors do. But again, you're in medical school for a reason and you deserve to be there. And don't ever doubt yourself. And again, reinforcing the point, don't compare yourself to other people. Just because someone studies 12 hours a day doesn't mean you have to study 12 hours a day. And that leads to my next topic, which is about studying in medical school. So there's a lot of different resources that people like to use in medical school. You can see by the plethora of things that we have on this slide. So a lot of people, they like to go by lectures. It's different for every school. I know specifically at my school, a lot of people don't use the lectures because they find other resources more helpful, but other students at different schools might find them extremely helpful because the professors cater the PowerPoint slides or lectures towards what they have to learn. But the second bullet point here, the syllabi or textbook, just like in undergrad, the syllabus in medical school like acts very similar. They have essential resources that the professor recommends, and that's something definitely to look into. And there's a bunch of different textbooks that people use for different subjects. I know for anatomy, I use Netters, and there's a bunch of different textbooks for each class. Just go by the syllabus provided. Anki is an app. It's a lot of us used it for MCAT, but people also use it in medical school. I know about like 60 to 70% of my class uses it. It's a spaced repetition app where you download like Anki cards, or you could make your own, and like you just keep doing them over and over again, and you learn them through that. One of the decks that we use is called Anking, and that has like 40,000 cards. It has like all the cards for like step 1 and everything. And then there's Boards and Beyond and Pathoma. They're very similar resources. They're both like video based. They have different topics that you have Anki cards associated with them as well that you could download off of Anking. and you could watch the videos if you really like those. They have some practice questions as well that you could watch, you could do after the videos. Pathoma as well. It's similar to Boards and Beyond, just a little bit different. They teach in a little bit different way. First aid is like the holy grail of medical information. It's like, the way I like to look at it is like when I was studying for the MCAT, there's like this 100-page doc that like had the different systems and everything, like super condensed and everything. First aid is like that, but like a lot bigger. So for example, like if you're looking at like, let's say you want to look at psychiatry and you wanted to look at like eating disorders, it would have like all of the eating disorders, like super condensed, straight to the point. And that's something that like most medical students look at. And then there's Sketchy. So Sketchy and Pixarize are similar. They're video based, and it's like cartoons essentially, and it's to drill down like information about like different pathogens, viruses, bacteria, along with a lot of drugs. And they use different like symbols and stuff like that to help you learn the different things. So it's like on the top of your head, like the different like penicillins and all other stuff. It's just like extreme. And UWorld, a lot of us are familiar with, is like practice questions. And again, practice makes perfect. So UWorld is like the questions are really hard, but like the amount of information that they provide is really helpful. And again, these resources vary by different schools. So what may work for you may not work for somebody else in a different school. And how to study. So there's not really a specific way of studying. It's not like you do X, Y, Z and you're guaranteed to get an A on your exams. Every person is different. And I think that is like the most difficult thing in medical school is not, it's just figuring out like what you need to do for yourself to ensure success. Someone might like look through the lectures for an hour and they're fine, but you might have to use like 4 different resources and like write everything out for it to work for you. And it's really good to take advice from other people, but just know that like what may work for somebody else may not work for you, and just try different things. And that also leads to the idea that like, just because something worked for somebody else, if you try it and it doesn't really work, don't try to force it. Just try something different. Experiment with your methods. And again, do practice questions. As mentioned in the last slide, doing practice questions will really help understanding some of these concepts. A lot of these concepts are super like complex, and like writing down pathways and everything really helps understanding. And just learn from your mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. It's part of life. It's part of medical school. And each course is a little different. So you might have to change your methods throughout each course, and that'll probably help you a lot for each course.
Okay, so all of us are going to share our favorite study methods with you guys. I can go ahead and start it off. So for me, I like to attend lecture. And then after attending lecture, whether that's in person or watching the recording, I do the Anki for that lecture. And then after doing that, we at UT Southwestern, we have these things called tutoring lectures or tutoring slides. And so I like attending those tutoring sessions because they usually condense all the material that was covered over a certain number of lectures. And then I study the tutoring PowerPoint slides that they had used during the tutoring sessions. And then I also do practice questions kind of to just see where my weaknesses are and what things I need to study more. And then I just repeat to going over tutoring slides and doing that. So that works for me. And then the other panelists, please feel free to share your study methods.
Yeah, sure. So for mine, the way I usually do it is like we have each like Boards and Beyond video associated with the topics we're supposed to learn for the week. So I'll go ahead and like, for example, let's say on week 1, it has like 5 videos. I'll watch a video, I'll do the Anki for it, and I'll just do a quick first pass through like all of the videos. And then I'll go back and then I'll like watch the video a lot slower and try to repeat everything and just try to really understand the concepts. And after that, once I understand everything, I'll look at first aid and I'll start doing practice questions.
For me, I'm kind of a big first pass, like quickly through it, but I focus more on the class lecture. So I would usually download our slides and I would listen to the lecture on 2-speed just to note like anything the professor said was super high yield. And I tried to front load my lectures. So I try to finish them all, like the assigned lectures for that test in the first like 2 or 3 days. Then I would go back and spend the rest of the time going like slower, rereading the slides a couple times each, and adding in practice questions as needed. I'm a big practice question study person, so the more practice questions I can do, the better. So I was big. Luckily, our school posted a lot, and I would just find resources like AMBOSS or like Exam Master, things like that, because practice questions really helped me.
And then for me, since I'm a big visual learner, I really liked annotating a lot of things. And also I found it helpful when I physically wrote stuff down, it would help me remember things. So basically my iPad and my Apple Pen were my best friend. Anything I could download onto Notability, I would. And since I was a lecture goer, lecture watcher, I wouldn't actually attend in person, but I would download lecture slides, and then also third-party resources. For first aid and pathoma, what I would do is I would summarize each section in the margins and also highlight things and draw pictures. And that really helped me, especially when I went back to review for step 1, because then I could just review my notes and I didn't have to reread all of the textbooks and all the resources. And then also I wanted to touch on Anki a bit. My first year, I tried to make myself an Anki person. I'm not anymore. I just never really kept up with it, and it was overwhelming to keep up with all the cards each day. And it works for some people because the spaced repetition really helps you remember things, but I didn't prefer it just because I liked getting a deeper understanding of things versus like the cards are really surface level. And if you don't know the material, it doesn't really help you understand things. But what I did do with Anki was sometimes towards the end of my studying, I would do a single pass through some of the cards, and that helped me review content areas and also identify areas that I was weak on. So you can still use them as a resource and a reference.
Okay, so now we're going to share what our biggest challenges are when we started medical school. So for me, the biggest challenge I had was figuring out how I best study, how I wanted my schedule to be like, and also getting out of my own head about being scared of failure. That was a big part of, a challenge that I encountered starting medical school, just the fear of med school being such a large challenge to overcome. And sometimes you just kind of have to get out of your head and, find the best study method and how you want to study, and everything will be fine.
I think the biggest challenge for me was like 2 things. One was like leaving home. I never lived alone before medical school, and moving to Galveston was like a huge change from living in Dallas. And like that's something I struggled with because like I was like a homebody, and like I have a bunch of siblings, so I spent a lot of time with them, and just not having anybody was like difficult for me. And the second thing I think I struggled with was the imposter syndrome part. So in undergrad, I studied finance, and then I came in with like a bunch of like med students that like had a bunch of knowledge on like different topics, and like they would like spew information in class, and I'd just be like, dude, I have no idea where you guys learned any of that stuff. And like that was like super intimidating for me, but like this year has been a lot better, so that's something I struggled with.
I think my biggest challenge was I started med school online in the middle of the pandemic, so it was just a very isolating experience in the beginning, and just finding those friends, making the support system was challenging. However, I think once you get on campus more, if you have the opportunity to go to campus, you'll get to meet people. And I think that really helped me, and making that support system that helped me through medical school.
Yeah, I definitely echo that, SAREENA, because when we were the COVID class, so we started med school, our first semester was completely virtual. So it was definitely hard to connect with people. Even connecting with professors was really hard. But it's really important to make friends in med school, just because friends can be academic support, but also social support. So I encourage you guys to try to make friends. And it's super easy in med school because especially your preclinical years, everyone has the same schedule, and you guys are all studying the same things. So studying with people is a great way to make friends. You can also join a few clubs, join some extracurriculars that interest you, and then you have that in common with people. But I just encourage you to like try to get out of the house, even study at the library or go to the rec center if you guys have one, and try to make friends because it's important.
I just want to add one more thing. I know y'all are y'all are getting ready to start medical school. One of the biggest challenges is going to be finding time for yourself. And I just really want to tell y'all, take some time. One of the best pieces of advice I got from like a friend was just take 1 hour out of the day. Spread it out, do chunks like 1 hour out of the day just for some you time. I would watch like a sitcom every time I eat a meal, like a 20-minute TV show, just to get like my mind away from things. Just take some time. 1 hour is all you need just to keep yourself grounded so you're not getting overwhelmed, because it's very easy to get overwhelmed your first semester of medical school.
Okay, so some last minute advice. Make friends and have fun, explore the city or try something new. So please take time for yourself on the weekends, or whether it's like a Friday evening, go out, have fun, explore the city, do something that you've never done before, and also take care of yourself. You can't be expected to do school and take care of your patients when you're not at your best. And you know, studying day in and day out, you can slowly and not, you know, it's something that you don't really realize. You can start, you know, getting burnt out and not wanting to do the things that you want to do, but make sure to take time to do the things that you love. Schedule your self-care and joy, and don't forget about your hobbies and the people that you love spending time with. Make sure to, if you're in a different city, make sure to take time to talk to your family and stay connected with your friends and everybody that you hold dear. Don't be scared to ask for help. It can be intimidating in medical school. There's this like kind of idea that you're a medical student, you just tough it out and you know, you do what you need to do and you grind. And that's all true, but at the same time, please don't be scared to ask for help. Ask help from upperclassmen, from your peers in your class, from your mentors, from your family, just anybody that can help. And I know all the medical schools have different support services for their medical students and health professionals, so please feel free to seek those out. And know that everything will be okay. I know it's right now you're starting a new journey. It can be stressful. You have all these thoughts in your head about making friends and also keeping up with coursework. And, you know, if you're moving to a different city, that can be tough. Or if it's your first time moving out of your house or your home, it can be difficult. And it's just a lot of different things that you're trying to keep up with. But just know that in the beginning, it'll be kind of hard to adjust to everything, but you'll adjust in a blink of an eye. Like you won't even realize it, and you'll be in the groove of, you know, being an expert and advising incoming medical students. So we all went through it, and I know that you all can do that as well. And that concludes our workshop. You can do this. We're here for you. If you ever need any help, advice, a pep talk, I'm going to put my information, my email, and my phone number. If the panelists also feel free, if you're comfortable, to do that in the chat. You know, reach out to whoever you need to, and just know that you can do this. We're all here to support you. And if you have any questions, we're going to open up the workshop to questions. Feel free to unmute yourself or put the questions in the chat, and then we'll take turns. We'll just kind of give our input wherever we want to. So feel free to do that.
And real quick, can all of the attendees also drop their names and email addresses in the chat? That way we can send you more information and keep you in touch with AMWPA.
Also, if the panelists have any last minute advice, feel free to give it.
Are we able to ask questions now? Okay.
Feel
So
free to do it. Yeah.
okay, so in terms of practice questions, So my school, I go to TCU in Fort Worth, and all of our exams are NBME based. So we don't have any sort of in-house exams. Do you have any suggestions for practice questions? I know a lot of people have mentioned Scholar RX, as well as Osmosis, but what do you guys think?
I really like the AMBOSS practice questions. I will say that one's a little more pricier on the end, and like some of the questions are harder, but I thought they were a good like representation. And I had friends who really use like I think it's USMLE RX or Scholar RX, and especially if you're like using first aid as you're like one of your main study tools, it's really good because it like goes through the first aid chapters.
Yeah, I think it's really good to invest in a question bank, just because it'll help you all throughout your preclinical years. But first find out if your school gives you one, because our school actually gave us RX. So that's what I used mostly during my preclinical years. But then a lot of people also supplement with AMBOSS. And I know those questions can be a little bit more difficult, but that can also help you. And then for
Yeah,
you, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Just saying, a lot of people like to say UWorld just for step one dedicated, but I know some people use UWorld questions for their tests as well.
Yeah, I mostly use USMLE RX in some UWorld. I try to focus like mostly on RX, and I sometimes also touch up on the boards and beyond questions after the videos and the tutoring. So a lot of schools, they do like tutoring, and a lot of them put like tutoring PowerPoints, and those have questions on them as well. So I do those as well.
Another good resource is I think the Robbins book has like a book of practice questions, like Robbins pathology questions. Those are really good study tools, as well as like for anatomy, like looking at like Michigan's anatomy website. They have very good like anatomy practice questions. Those are just like two resources specifically for pathology and anatomy that I found like very useful.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you everybody for attending. That concludes our workshop. And again, you can do this. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help you. And thank you so much to all the panelists for taking the time to give everybody advice.